Picture this. It's 11:11 a.m., the church clock stuck mid-chime, and a 19-year-old girl in a patched thrift store dress stands at the altar beside a limping stranger the town calls a beggar. Her own family smirking from the pews, certain they've buried her future in shame. 4 months earlier, those numbers had started chasing her through grief, receipts, and sleepless nights, whispering a promise she couldn't yet name. What if 11:11 wasn't random, but a thread from beyond, ready to pull her from ruin to something unbreakable? This is the true inspired story of a heart tested, a lie exposed, and the moment alignment proved stronger than cruelty. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Emily Harper was 19 the year the universe started speaking in numbers. She lived in a weathered farmhouse 3 miles outside Bloomington, Indiana, the kind of place where paint peels in long curls and the porch groans under your weight like it's tired of holding things up. The house belonged to her Aunt Lorraine and Uncle Tom, and Emily belonged to them too, though belonged felt more like owed than loved. Her parents had died when she was 15. A silo collapse during harvest, sudden, violent, the kind of accident that leaves a town quiet for weeks. Emily had been at school when it happened, solving algebra problems while her mother and father were being crushed under 1,000 tons of corn. Lorraine and Tom took her in, not out of kindness, out of duty, the kind that comes with witnesses and church attendance. They gave her the attic room, the one with a slanted ceiling and a window that wouldn't close all the way, so winter crept in through the gap and summer hung heavy like unwanted company. Emily worked. Before school, after school, weekends. Feeding chickens in the dark, mucking stalls that smelled of manure and old hay, scrubbing floors while Lorraine sat at the kitchen table with coffee and complaints. Tom barely spoke to her, just pointed at chores with his chin and walked away, his boots leaving mud she'd have to clean. She didn't complain. Complaining required hope that things could be different, and Emily had learned to save her hope for smaller things. A kind word from a teacher. The way morning light hit the sycamore tree outside her window. The feeling that somewhere, her parents were still watching. Have you ever felt the people closest to you pull away for reasons you couldn't fix? Drop a heart in the comments, we read every one. It started on a Tuesday in late September. Emily was at the Piggly Wiggly, buying groceries with the $20 Lorraine had slapped on the counter that morning, just enough for the basics, never enough for anything soft or sweet. She'd learned to stretch it. Store-brand bread, day-old produce, the chicken parts nobody wanted. At the register, the total came to $11.11. The cashier, a woman named Deb with reading glasses on a beaded chain, laughed. "Well, make a wish, honey. That's a lucky number." Emily smiled politely, took her change, and thought nothing of it. Until she got home and glanced at the kitchen clock, 11:11 a.m. Then again that night, microwave timer blinking 11:11 after a power flicker. And the next morning, the odometer turning to 111,111 miles as she drove Tom's truck to the feed store. Coincidence, she told herself. Pattern recognition. The brain's desperate attempt to find meaning in chaos. But it kept happening. Emily started keeping a record in an old composition notebook she'd found in a box of her mother's things. Blue cover, water-stained, pages still smelling faintly of her mother's lavender hand lotion. September 24. Grocery receipt $11.11. September 24. Microwave timer 11:11 p.m. September 27. Church bulletin page 11, verse 11 underlined in red. September 29. Rain started at 11:11 p.m., first drops on the attic window. She didn't tell anyone. Lorraine would have called it foolishness. Tom would have said nothing at all, which was worse. But late at night, when the house was quiet and the attic felt like a ship floating above sleeping cruelty, Emily would flip through the notebook and wonder if her mother was trying to reach her from wherever people go when grain elevators collapse and love gets buried under 1,000 tons of something that was supposed to feed you. Nathan appeared on the first day of October. Emily was feeding the chickens when she saw him, a man walking up the long gravel drive, limping badly, favoring his left leg. He wore old jeans, a jacket that had seen better years, and a canvas pack slung over one shoulder. His hair was dark and needed cutting, and his face carried the kind of quiet that comes from traveling alone for too long. Tom met him at the porch. Emily couldn't hear the conversation, but she watched Tom's posture shift from suspicion to interest, from interest to something that looked almost like greed. The man stayed for dinner. Lorraine set an extra plate with the kind of reluctance that made it clear this was charity, not welcome. Emily served pot roast and boiled potatoes while the adults talked in low voices about work, about farms, about hard times. The stranger's name was Nathan. No last name offered. He said he was traveling, looking for work, to do anything. The limp was from an old accident, vague when pressed, polite but closed. Tom offered him the barn loft and 3 meals a day in exchange for labor. Nathan accepted with a nod that seemed too dignified for someone accepting so little. As Emily cleared the plates, Nathan looked up and said, "Thank you." Just 2 words. But his eyes held hers for a moment, and something in that look felt like recognition, like he'd been searching for something and just found it. Emily carried the dishes to the sink. The clock on the wall read 11:11. If you've ever seen repeating numbers during hard times, tell us in the comments what they meant to you. Nathan worked hard. He repaired fences, cleaned gutters, split wood with an efficiency that didn't match his limp. Emily watched him from the kitchen window while washing dishes, noticing the way he moved, careful, yes, but strong. The limp seemed more pronounced when Tom was watching, less so when he thought no one could see. 2 weeks in, Tom called Emily into the sitting room. Lorraine sat on the couch, hands folded, expression neutral in that way that meant decisions had already been made. "Nathan's asked to marry you," Tom said, flat as the weather. Emily's heart kicked. "What?" "He needs legal status for work. You need security, fair trade." "I don't even know him." Tom leaned back in his chair, fingers laced over his stomach. "You know him well enough. He's respectful, he works, and he's offered compensation." The word hung there, compensation, and Emily understood. This wasn't about her future. This was about money changing hands in a transaction where she was inventory, not a person. "No," she said. Lorraine's voice cut in, sharp as January wind. "You'll do what's best for this family. We've fed you, sheltered you, asked nothing in return. I work every day. Room and board aren't free, Emily. Gratitude is a debt." Emily avoided Nathan for 3 days. But the farm was small, and avoidance only lasted until chores overlapped. She found him in the barn, checking a loose board on one of the stalls. He straightened when she entered, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to put you in this position." Emily set down the bucket of feed she was carrying. "Why would you want to marry someone you don't know?" Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "Sometimes the thing you're looking for doesn't announce itself. You just recognize it when it's standing in front of you." His voice was educated, too educated for someone who'd been walking gravel roads looking for farm work. Emily noticed other things too. His hands were calloused, yes, but not in the way Tom's were. These were deliberate calluses, recent ones. The kind you earn quickly, not over decades. "You're not what you seem," she said. Nathan smiled, small, sad, true. "Neither are you." The clock tower in town chimed in the distance. 11 chimes. Emily glanced at her watch. Emily wrote in her notebook that night. October 19. Nathan asked to marry me. Tom's arrangement. October 19. Barn conversation 11:11 a.m. October 19. I don't know what to do. October 19. But the numbers keep pointing me here. She thought about her parents, about the silo collapse, about how Tom had handled the estate settlement, and how quickly her father's debts had been resolved. While Tom's farm expanded, she thought about Nathan's eyes, the way they saw her, not through her. And she thought about 11:11, appearing like breadcrumbs through a forest she couldn't see the end of. 3 days later, she found Nathan by the fence line. "I'll do it," she said. "On one condition. Name it. You tell me the truth. Eventually." Nathan extended his hand. "Deal." His grip was firm, warm, and when Emily looked down, she noticed the time on her watch, 11:11 a.m. If you're still here for the twist, hit the like button, it's coming and it's worth it. The wedding took place on a Thursday morning at the Methodist Church, the small one on Hickory Road with white siding and a steeple that leaned slightly to the left. Emily wore a dress from the church donation closet, cream-colored, slightly too big, smelling of mothballs and other people's occasions. Lorraine had offered nothing from her own wardrobe. Tom wore his Sunday suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nathan wore clean jeans and a pressed shirt, and when he took Emily's hand at the altar, his grip steadied her trembling. The minister, Reverend Michaels, who'd baptized Emily as a baby, spoke about commitment and faith. Emily barely heard him. She was watching the clock on the back wall, watching the minute hand climb toward the 11. At exactly 11:11, the clock stopped. Not broken, just paused. A full 5 seconds of stillness, while the second hand quivered but didn't move. Then it resumed, and Reverend Michaels pronounced them married, and Tom clapped twice short, perfunctory, done. They drove to a small house on the edge of town, a place Emily had never seen. Nathan unlocked the door and held it open, and Emily stepped into a space that was clean, furnished, clearly lived in for more than 2 weeks. Sit, Nathan said gently. I owe you the truth. Emily sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap, still wearing the too big cream dress. Nathan sat across from her, elbows on his knees, and began. My name is Nathan Forrester. My father owned Forrester Agriculture, 12,000 acres across 3 counties. He partnered with your uncle Tom 20 years ago on a grain storage facility. There was an accident during construction. The silo collapsed. My father and your parents were killed. Emily's breath caught. The investigation was rushed. The insurance payout was substantial. Tom settled quickly, claimed emotional hardship, and the case was closed. But my mother never believed it was an accident. She hired investigators. They found evidence of cut corners, faulty materials, forged inspection reports, all tied back to Tom's construction company. Nathan's voice was steady, but his hands weren't. My mother died 3 years ago, still angry, still grieving. I inherited everything: the company, the land, the unfinished business. I wanted justice. But more than that, I wanted to know if there was anything good left in that family. If cruelty was learned or inherited. He looked at Emily, and his eyes were wet. I came here pretending to be no one, and I found you. Working yourself to exhaustion for people who'd never say thank you. Feeding chickens at dawn and scrubbing floors at midnight. Kind to a stranger who didn't deserve kindness. Emily's voice was barely a whisper. The money Tom took from you is exactly what he demanded for this marriage. I paid him $50,000 to let me marry you. He thinks he won. He has no idea he just signed over his legal liability and gave me access to every financial record tied to that property. The clock on the wall read 11:11. Nathan pulled out a folder. This is yours. Deed to your parents' land, the part that should have gone to you. Insurance settlements that were never distributed. And documentation of every fraud your uncle committed. Emily took the folder with shaking hands. Why? Because the universe doesn't shout, Emily. It whispers. And sometimes it whispers through numbers until someone finally listens. Tom and Lorraine faced quiet reckoning. No public scandal, Nathan made sure of that. Just lawyers, audits, and the slow unraveling of 20 years of theft dressed as tragedy. They lost the farm, lost the house. Moved to a small apartment in town where Lorraine's complaints echoed off thin walls and Tom's silence finally had nowhere to hide. Emily didn't gloat. She simply existed in a space they could no longer touch. Emily and Nathan's marriage started as a transaction, but it didn't stay one. They learned each other slowly over morning coffee, over shared silence, over the kind of honesty that only comes after you've both been broken by different versions of the same cruelty. Emily used her inheritance to establish the Harper Forrester Scholarship for rural students who'd lost parents to farm accidents. Small grants. No strings. Just a belief that tragedy doesn't have to be the end of the story. She kept her mother's notebook, now filled front to back with 1111 sightings. But the fear was gone. What remained was gratitude. Every day at 11:11 morning and night, Emily pauses. Sometimes she's feeding chickens. Sometimes she's reviewing scholarship applications. Sometimes she's sitting beside Nathan on the porch of their own house, watching the light change over fields that finally belong to the right people. And she whispers, "I'm listening." The numbers no longer chase her, they guide her. Because the universe doesn't announce itself with thunder, it whispers to those who keep giving when it costs the most. What would you do if 1111 showed up in your life? Tell us below. Your thoughts matter here. Like if quiet redemption feels stronger than loud revenge. Subscribe. Next week brings another timestamp tale. And remember, when the numbers line up, the next step is already waiting.